Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. Thank you all for checking us out from wherever you get your podcasts. While you are there, make sure you rate us and review us and give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Meh, just go ahead and give us 5 anyway.
Gift it.
All right, so today on Unfair Sports, we're going to dive into some fair or unfair about the teams in LA, a team in New York, a team in Miami. Ask the question, can a football team win 20 straight games? One of the greats in tennis withdrawals due to personal issues, and we will explain why that is probably a good thing, and fans losing their damn minds. Make sure you hit us up on the Unfair Fan Line, 430-901-1906, and leave us a message and let us know what you think about the show. We love some good, strong opinions, so hit us up there. Let us know what you think at 430-901-1906, as well as check out our YouTube page. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Jam Master OJ, what's going on?
What it do, baby, on this Memorial Day?
Man, doing good?
Feeling yourself? You feeling it?
Feel good.
You feel good? Yeah, it's been a bit.
It's a lot to talk about.
Oh, there's a lot to go through, man. The NBA, I have to say, the NBA players have done a fantastic job of giving us stuff to actually talk about.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff. Because now we're back in the speculation portion of the year where we actually have absolutely no clue what the hell is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And as much as we lie to ourselves and say we know, we're lying to ourselves.
And, and when we were growing up, it didn't used to be this way. The first round was just something you could snooze through. Because it was a lot of 3-1s, a lot of 4-0s, and that was basically it. There weren't a lot of 2-2s. There weren't a lot of 7-game series. So this is a lot different.
At least it didn't feel like it. And
no.
Some of the things, though, we did have, though, the one thing we had, I think that helped garner a little interest was we did have the 5-game series back then. The 90s were the 5-game series, so it was the best of 5. So basically, it always had some sort of an element of suspense, but most of the time it was 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of 3-0s in that, and so today the league is so much more talented. We have it's spread out a lot more than people believe. It's just that by the value of attrition and the best players always end up the cream rises to the top.
Mm-hmm.
We always end up with specific teams making it to the finals. But with that, let me jump off with this. Since today is going to be heavy NBA because we are in the thick of the actual playoffs. Shout out to the NHL for their playoffs as well. Somebody's talking about it. I promise somebody's talking about the playoffs in the NHL. We're just not.
Yeah, not us.
But I asked a question. So we're going to jump into first the 2 teams in LA. And I want to jump into this one first because I think this one is probably the most pressing due to everything going on. Anthony Davis is once again down.
Mm-hmm.
He has what they're saying a strained groin, which if you've ever strained your groin before, it's hard to walk, let alone do anything else. Imagine trying to play basketball on that. It's tough. And he's listed as day to day, as I throw up my little quotes with my claw hands. How exactly do you expect someone to be this athletic to be considered day to day with a growing injury? Hell, LeBron was gone for 20-something games 2 years ago with a growing injury. So because of that, no more Anthony Davis. The Lakers did, of course, get mollywopped by the Suns yesterday, 100-92, as the third and fourth quarter, the Suns really pulled away. Even though Lakers did try to make it close, you could tell that they just didn't have the weapons to it, especially with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope also out.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have to ask the question, Jimmy, is it fair or unfair to say that Anthony Davis will cost the Lakers a chance at a ring?
I'm going to go with fair.
Ooh.
It is fair that, let's say he's not able to come back from this growing injury because it's of the severity as to what the LeBron James injury was. Now, granted, AD is still in his 20s. LeBron was in his mid-30s when that happened.
Correct.
Which make Lakers fans feel somewhat optimistic that he can come back, to this. I think he's done for the series. What the Lakers have said is that it's possible that if this series goes to 6 or 7 games, that he might in fact be able to come back. But I don't think he can, because even if he could, you would have to, on the possibilities of making it further into the playoffs, you would have to I guess in a sense, bubble wrap him more than you want to and hold him out as long as possible. But yes, he's going to cost him a ring. He's not going to cost him this series. I don't believe he's going to cost him the next series if they make it to Denver or Portland. But after that, whether you're facing Utah or the Clippers, he will cost them that series and in a sense cost them a ring. So yes, AD has cost the Lakers a chance at making it to the finals and therefore winning one.
Yeah, I'm actually on the same boat, which I'm kind of surprised that you gave.
So you thought I would say it's not fair.
I thought you would say it was unfair to really blame it and put it all on his shoulders when it's supposed to be LeBron's team. But I'm with you on that. This it would be fair to say that Anthony Davis will be the reason why they don't win a championship, because this team is built around two players, LeBron and Anthony Davis. You can tell it's built around LeBron and Anthony Davis because when LeBron or Anthony Davis is not on the court, the team goes to muck. It basically falls off the cliff. I saw someone that posted some plus minuses about what the team looks like with them on and off the court. Lost them in prepping for the show. But the point is that it's bad. It's bad when neither one of them are on the court. And that is typically when teams start to pull away. And then, of course, when LeBron AD comes back in, they push it closer, maybe take a lead. They come out the game. It stretches out. The thing is they're human. There's nothing about them that are superheroes or anything like that. The human body has its limits. And the reason why I really agree with your notion on Anthony Davis potentially costing them, that being fair to say that, is Anthony Davis has been hurt the last, actually his entire career.
Pretty
but
much.
At least the last 5 years,
yes.
It's not been good. I mean, he's going from the calf injury, the strained, the Achilles situation, we got the growing now. It's just as you go down, you go down the list, Anthony Davis has always had something that's happened. And as much as we would like to put him in bubble wrap, you can't. And he's also a player that falls down a lot. You talked about this a long time ago on the show about how Anthony Davis hits the ground so much.
He did it again yesterday.
He did.
Who falls like that?
He does. That's the Anthony Davis thing, is that he hits the ground a lot. And because of that, that's the thing that's going to really shorten his career. Yes, he's 28 years old, but he's also 6'10", a 6'10" point guard that's still not used to the fact that he's 6'10" and not 6'2". He falls like he's 6'2", and he falls like he's a Ja Morant or Allen Iverson or Dwayne Wade even, and Dwayne Wade's almost 6'5". Because he's hitting the ground so much, this is going to be the thing that's going to not only shorten his career, but I do see it as shortening up their chance for a championship.
But at the same time, I don't think all optimism is lost for the Lakers. I'll give you an example. This is a Kanye West example. All right, so years ago,
pre-Kim or post-Kim?
Pre-Kim.
Okay.
Kanye West did a show here in Oklahoma City where we broadcast out of. And one of the opening acts for that show was supposed to be Lupe Fiasco. But for whatever reason, he wasn't able to do the show. I never exactly knew why. And then the word was out of that, Kanye West was perfectly fine with it because he said, okay, great. I can do more of my songs now.
I can be more me.
So LeBron James, after this, he said, and I quote, on being without Anthony Davis for probably the next game and beyond that, said these shoulders were built for this. So essentially what he's saying is that I'm built to be able to take up part of the slack that is going to be there because Anthony Davis isn't going to be there. Okay. So in order for them to at least get past this series and the formula moving forward until and if Anthony Davis is able to come back is this. It's one of two formulas. Either LeBron James, neither of which is exactly likely, but it's possible. LeBron James has to average at least a 20-point triple-double. You got to get 20 points from Kyle Kuzma on average, and you got to get 10 points and 7 rebounds on average from Montrezl Harrell. That's 30 and 7. That's about what you would have gotten from Anthony Davis, or at least around what he had these last few games. I know he had more rebounds and just his impact on the court in terms of what it forces the defense to do and how it forces them to scheme. You're still going to be missing that because they don't fear Kuzma and Montrezl like they're going to fear Anthony Davis. So if that doesn't happen, that's one scenario. The second scenario is Bron has to average a 30 to 40-point triple-double if you're getting half of those averages I gave you from Kuzma or Harrell. So if you're only getting 10 from Kuzma or you're only getting 5 from Harrell, then LeBron James has to make up that slack in order to already make up for the slack being without Anthony Davis. So if they do that, if Kyle Kuzma is going to be in the starting lineup, most likely, and Montrezl Harrell step up and maintain those averages, they can get past Phoenix, and I believe they can beat Portland and Denver, without that. But if they don't get Anthony Davis back by the Western Conference Finals against the Clippers, you're going to lose. If they don't get him against the Utah Jazz in the Western Conference Finals, you're going to lose. So there's the optimism right there. And GM LeBron had to have seen this coming. So this is the reason why you go out and get Trez. This is the reason why you get Dennis Schroeder. This is the reason why you get Andre Drummond, because you knew that this was going to happen. Now that it has happened, put your plan in action, and they still need to win this series in order to justify everything that they did in preparation for Anthony Davis not being there.
So LeBron, yes, he did state, and I quote, "These shoulders were built for this." Mm-hmm. And I believe this is more of a past tense piece out of LeBron. He ain't built for today's shoulders. LeBron's shoulders is different today than they were before. Remember, LeBron had this ankle injury, and it seemed like he was not trying to go to the goal for most of this series to start because of that ankle. Uh-huh. Now he's going to shoulder more of the load. I don't think that's a good thing for him in the pursuit for the championship. This is why. I believe that, and Nick Wright mentioned this, that they needed Anthony Davis for specific series. This is the series they need him for. Mm-hmm. They need Anthony Davis for this series so that LeBron can coast into the second round. And then he can play around at about half speed in the second round and then go into the third round, 3/4 speed in the third round, and then hit the finals. He can go full speed LeBron to try to win the championship. Right. Because LeBron James is also 36 years old. And I will repeat myself. There are limits to the human body. Mm-hmm. And because there are limits to the human body, LeBron needs somebody else to step up to get him to the end of it, because he has so many miles on his body, regardless of how many millions he's paid to take care of his body. There are limits to the human body unless you become a cyborg. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that that's physically possible or legally possible.
I see what you're saying. It reminds me of Logan. Remember at the end before the big fight in the woods where he took all of that serum. He's only supposed to take part of it. He took it all. So then he's coming out there. He's, Logan. Yeah. And then halfway through the fight.
Looking like me halfway through my run, like half a mile, and then get to the half a mile and just like
had absolutely nothing left. So that's part of what you're saying. But even if that's the case, he still has to find a way, because this is one of those GOAT situations. Now, I've evolved to believe in the NBA that there is not a single GOAT. There is a GOAT for each era. But LeBron James still believes that he can be the greatest of all time, the undisputed GOAT. So if he's going to be that, in this particular series with what he's facing right now, he has to win this series, because MJ, in the same circumstances, is not losing this series. Kobe is not losing this series. Magic Johnson is not losing this series. Therefore, LeBron James, if he wants to be on that Mount Rushmore or surpass them, he has got to win this series.
That's our assumption. Mm-hmm. We are assuming that.
What are we assuming, though?
We're assuming that MJ would not lose this series.
He wouldn't.
We are assuming, because Jordan's never had a teammate as critical as Anthony Davis ever be injured and actually down in a series.
True.
Ever.
So then we're extrapolating from what we know and what we saw of MJ. If he were in this exact same series in LeBron James' position,
he would lose.
You feel like MJ would lose this series?
Yes.
There is no way MJ loses this series.
He lost the series. It's all the way up until Scottie Pippen got good.
Facts. But
so that's my point.
He's not losing this series.
You say that. Well, I'll let you think that. So we'll move on to the next part.
All right.
Let's talk about this, Jimmy. Is it fair or unfair when it comes to the Clippers? So LA Clippers start off the series losing the first two games in a way that shocked all of us in theory, but also at the same time reminded us that they are the Clippers. This is what they do. Mm-hmm. Well, the Clippers decided to travel down to Dallas after losing the first two games at home in LA and clock in on the Dallas Mavericks. They won the game on Sunday, 106-81, tying the series by winning back-to-back games in Dallas. So my question for you, Jimmy, is it fair or unfair to write off the Clippers after the first two games?
It was unfair, I think, because though we typically don't see a team lose the first two at home when you're the higher seed and come back to win the series, they still have two. Most people would still take their top two over the Mavericks' top two, even though the Mavericks' top two is headed by Luka Doncic, who just eats them up no matter what. Now, I don't know what his numbers were at the end of this game, but we know he has that neck/nerve issue that really he was bothered by that in the second quarter.
Yep.
You could see it, and the telecast wouldn't get off that. So we know that it was severely hampering him in a sense. But I think that given that you have these two elite athletes, given that somewhere in there you have a really good defensive team, a team that was tops when it came to 3-point shooting and free throw shooting during the regular season. So you knew that was in there, and you knew that even though they could still lose this series, they couldn't allow themselves to get swept or to lose 4-1. So this doesn't surprise me. It seems like not only have they've hit a second gear, and even before the two wins that they've just had, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they might not have been playing a look of defense on Luka Doncic, but they were really good on offense. Now they've added the defensive element to that. Yes, it helps that in this war of attrition, Luka Doncic is hurt. Who knows what he's going to look like on Wednesday night when they play Game 5, but they figured it out. They figured out something in order to help them win these two games on the road. Now we will see if they truly figured it out when they get back to LA on Wednesday night and see if they can get a victory. Not only a victory, but what kind of victory can you get in that game? It was unfair.
Think it's unfair? So I'm opposite there. I think it was fair to write them off after that, because that's something the Clippers would do.
Yeah.
Historically, the Clippers have never made it past the second round in the NBA playoffs. Ever. They had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, and they had Lob City. They've had the number 1 seed before. They've never gotten out of the first round. Correction, retract that. They haven't had a number 1 seed. I think they've had a 2. I don't think they've had a 1 yet. But they have never gotten out of the second round. That one is true. So that one's the truth. What was the one thing about that Clippers roster when it was constructed that we said that they're going to be great at?
Well, last season or this season?
Just period. When the team first got together, what was when Patrick Beverley said that he won the NBA Finals or whatever when they landed Kawhi Leonard and Paul George? What was the one thing that we said would be the best part about that team?
Their defense.
Exactly, the perimeter defense. At that.
Yeah.
While Luka Doncic is beating the dog out of them, supposed to be the best perimeter defending team dang near ever constructed.
Okay, can we give them this? Can we say that, and this would take a deep dive in second and third degree analytics to figure this out, but can we say that with this team supposedly being a great defensive team, if that's what they were constructed to be, and let's say you take other great defensive teams that we've seen before, which defense in the NBA is not as emphasized as offense. That's what sells the product. But I think all of those great defensive teams that we've seen in the history of the NBA had at least one guy, one matchup who was just their kryptonite, and they could do nothing about it. Double teams, fouling, your whole defensive scheme to get the ball out of their hands, nothing worked against that player. So as long as only Luka does this to them, I won't begrudge them that, because I feel like every great defensive team has had that one guy. He's been theirs. Unfortunately, he's in the same conference with them. They faced him the last 2 playoff series and have not been able to stop him.
I'm going to say this.
Okay.
I agree. There's typically a player that has solid games, but I do not believe that top-rated defensive teams, perfect example, even the Lakers are the number 1 rated defense.
Right.
The Jazz are up there in the top 3. I think the Suns were actually top 5 this year in rated defense. It wasn't. If the one thing that you were great on defense was on the like for example, the Jazz are best defense in the paint. They don't let nobody score in the paint. Even if they lose their series, it's always a perimeter guy that gets them. If they stop the paint. These guys are supposed to be perimeter defenders. They were letting Tim Hardaway Jr. eat them alive. Yeah, they're letting Luka Doncic. Luka averages 33 this series while shooting 48% from the field, 40 from 3. After the abysmal game last night. The Sunday night game, he had 19 points. He shot 37% from the field and 14% from 3. And he's still shooting 40% from 3 in this series. That, to me, is where I say, with this Clippers team, it's fair to write them off at that point. Now, I didn't fully think that the Mavericks were going to win this series. I did say on solo last week that if the Clippers lose this series or next, it's time for them to make changes. It's time to go ahead and move things around. Because the one thing we do know is that we have no clue about Kawhi Leonard. We don't know what the hell that dude is. We don't know what that dude does. I mean, for the fact of, did you know that he's producing a rap album with somebody?
I'm sorry, what?
Exactly. We know nothing about Kawhi Leonard. I saw him recently on a commercial talking about quicksand and why the quicksand moves so slow. And I'm like, wait, he actually talks in commercials? Because his New Balance commercials had no words out of him. He just played basketball and did his thing. But yes, he is producing a rap album with someone.
Who's the rapper?
I have to go look it up again, but it was one of the things where I looked at him like, we have no clue about Kawhi Leonard. We know nothing about this dude. He just does stuff. Yes, Kawhi Leonard working on music project will send proceeds to Mamba and Mambasita Foundation.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah, he's doing stuff that we're just kind of like,
where did that come from?
Word? Right. And so when I say, where does that come from? We don't know what it's going to look like moving forward.
So you're saying that he may not be a Clipper next year?
No. He's going to be a Clipper next year. There's going to be people that won't be Clippers next year,
right,
but he will be. And I know people are asking the question of, okay, if you trade Paul George, who do you get for him? I don't know. There's about 25 teams that will gladly take him. You just got to find a place that needs to go ahead and swap stars. Boston's a good place right now. Mm-hmm. Washington's look really good right now as well. You just swap players and go. That's what it's going to be.
You and I, we tend to be on different sides of the fence when it comes to that, when something like this isn't working. Because it's, if, like you said, they lose in the first or second round, the Clippers move one of the major pieces. You think the Celtics should be blown up,
yes,
right?
It's time.
Before this season, you were saying that the 76ers probably should move one of the major pieces as well. Because it wasn't working. Whereas I'm like, I'm more of a try to find a way to make it work. And you're more of it ain't working, try something different type of person. Either can work, but I've noticed that.
We've watched this happen multiple times.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you need to make a move that's going to change something up. Like, for example, Milwaukee. I would have thought Milwaukee, after this season, would need to start moving pieces around as well. Mm-hmm. They, of course, they're not moving Giannis, so they probably need to either move Chris Middleton or bring in someone. Guess what? They brought in two people, so they made their changes. Miami needs to go ahead and start making some changes because they've realized they're not going to get past Milwaukee anymore.
We'll get to them.
And then going into Boston, Boston's been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 years. And this year they regressed dramatically. And because they've regressed dramatically this year, obviously that doesn't mean that they're going to just come back next year and just blow things, just be amazing. Kemba Walker's gotten older. Is looking like it. Jaylen Brown is a solid complementary player. And we don't know if Jason Tatum is going to be Jason Tatum's not going to be a superstar. He will be a star in this league as a face. He won't be the face, but he'll be one of the many young faces that we will keep up with over the next 10 years. But he has a lot of moments where he's also disappeared. So with that, my point is this. Paul George ain't getting no younger, and neither is Kawhi Leonard, nor is Kawhi Leonard's body.
Right.
Paul George is in his 30s. Kawhi's in his 30s. If this ain't the team today, they need to go ahead and move around and get a younger player that can complement Kawhi Leonard and play 82 games while Kawhi plays 65. That's my point. So we always do this on Mondays, diving right into the news.
And now Jimmy has the
A
news.
little late on the drop there. Thank you, Wendy. All right, so going back to the Lakers, Jay, and I referenced this, that it's expected that Anthony Davis, because of the growing injury, is unlikely to play in Game 5. 2 questions. 1, does he make it back for this series? If it goes 6 or 7?
Yes.
Yes. And what can he do next season to be less injury prone?
Take ballet.
Interesting.
Balance. Work on your balance. Work on the ability to not fall and hit the ground so much. Work on that. I think something like that. Somebody needs to put him in a place where he can work on just stability as far as just not falling over. Frame wise, he's just one of those guys that fall. I mean, I'm a guy that don't have a sturdy frame. Like, I'm strong, but you can push me. I just move. That's really what it is.
In this sense, maybe he should play the 5 more, where it's less going to the basket, it's less cutting, it's less perimeter play, even though he doesn't want to, because he doesn't like getting banged around like that.
They're so much better when he's the 5.
Very much so. Take $1 million, spend it on your body like LeBron James, and this whole summer, train with Tom Brady in the TB12 method, wherever that is now. I'm sure it's probably not in Massachusetts where he trained. Train with him.
Now, his method is to not get hit.
Yes.
And Anthony Davis needs to get hit.
Yeah, he needs to not get hit by the floor, if what I'm hearing is correct from you, in order to preserve himself.
What's next?
Yeah. All right. Nets, actually.
Nets.
The Nets. Yesterday,
Nets,
against
Nets.
the Celtics. Nets, nothing but Nets. Really, their big three combined for 104 points in their Game 5 victory over the Celtics to take a 3-1 lead. So my question to you is, with this 104 combined points between the Nets' big three, is this a sign of things to come, or is it just that Boston can't defend anybody?
Who they got to play defense besides Marcus Smart and Tatum? Right. You probably can't name anybody on that team outside of Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart right now. That's how bad they are. They have no one. Kemba Walker didn't play. Mm-hmm. And Jaylen Brown's out. Mm-hmm. They're falling apart. So
essentially, we're not going to see the Nets put up 104 combined points from their big three any more in the playoffs. Once
next
they get
series,
past Boston.
hell no. Next series,
not against Milwaukee.
I'll put $100 on it right now. They won't score 104 points combined in the next series against Milwaukee.
What's the lowest you would go on that bet? Like, okay, what if I said 95 points combined?
100.
I have to think about that. It's interesting. Yeah. All right, lastly, so former Chicago Bears quarterback Jay Cutler sounded off on their quarterback situation. He says that he would not start Justin Fields to begin the season if it were up to him. Now, the first game is a Sunday night game in L.A. against the Rams, who by some metrics was the number one defense last year, with that monster in the middle, Aaron Donald, and the monster on the outside, Jalen Ramsey. So, would you let Jalen Fields start the season if he's clearly better than Anthony Dalton?
If Justin Fields goes out there and wins it wins it a la Russell Wilson did over Matt Flynn that year, hell yeah, I'm starting him against the Rams on the road. Perfect experience, because this is the deal. Aaron Donald's going to chase him around. Justin Fields also runs like a 4.40.
Yes, he does.
He's still faster than Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's going to give the pressure on him. I think he has a quicker first step. He'll be just fine. He'll probably have a really bad game, and you need that. Go ahead and get your stamps in now. Get the nerves out. Get the butterflies at your stomach, and go.
I think it's better for television if he starts. I mean, can you imagine a Sunday night game with Justin Fields, who may actually be the best quarterback out of this class, against that Rams defense? I mean, this will be the first game in Kroenke world where you actually have fans in that multi-billion-dollar stadium. So the NFL is basically telling the Bears, don't listen to Jay Cutler. Listen to us. Put him in there to start the game. We need it for ratings.
You never heard of the guy before anyway.
Yeah.
Is that it?
All right, news.
And that was Jimmy with the news.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, so going into the next set of asking the question of fair or unfair, Jimmy. We're gonna keep this going for the first couple blocks, and this one's a good question to ask. Everyone is excited about the New York Knicks making it to the playoffs for the first time since 2017 with Carmelo Anthony?
Much further back than that.
13. It was 13, my bad. It was 2013. I forgot about them. 2013. So we finally got them in the playoffs. We're getting to see the Knicks go out there and ball, and super exciting. See Madison Square Garden being almost packed, and then probably the next set of games are going to be super packed. And then we watched them actually play basketball, and we're trying to ask ourselves, what in the hell's going on? So, Jimmy, is it fair or unfair to say that the Knicks in the playoffs are frauds?
I mean, in part, is based upon what one's expectations were of them. I would say it's unfair to call them a fraud because they proved, at least during the regular season, that they were a good team. That's how they got the number 4 seed. Now, I know in the East, the number 4 seed is like a number 6 or 7 seed in the West, but that's neither here nor there. So I think that if your expectations of them were minimal, then they're not a fraud. I think that this is we're just happy to be here type of scenario, and the fans feel that even more so.
Yeah, I can see
to not only have basketball back and be able to be in the arena, but to be there for a playoff game for a team who's just not been able to get back to some type of prominence since the Patrick Ewing days.
Ooh,
so
that's true.
Yeah, so they're happy to be here. What we know is that they have a blueprint as far as what kind of team they can be, and it's primarily been shaped by Tom Thibodeau, who tends to take that blueprint with him wherever he goes. It works like every other time. So this is one of those times where it works, and it's clear that they need a shot creator. They don't need a top 10 player necessarily. Every team would love to have one of those, so if you can get one, get them. But they put themselves in a position to be attractive to someone who could be maybe in the top 15, top 20 range, who can create their own shot, who can be a good perimeter scorer, good perimeter defender. And that's, I guess, part of what they're missing in order to maybe crack the top 3 at some point over the next 2 to 3 seasons, so long as they keep Julius Randle healthy and ascending. Their best shot creator right now is Derrick Rose. And it's fun to see him, to see flashes of young MVP Rose before all the knee injuries. But he's not going to be able to do this next year. I'm sorry, he's not. And obviously the year beyond that. So my expectations were, I did pick them to win this series. I didn't pick them to go beyond that. So if I pick you to go to the second round, but you lose in the first to a team that is clearly better than you, then I don't see you as a fraud. I see you as having a good foundation upon which to build, and that's what's going to matter more. We're going to see really what this team is made of now that they don't catch anybody by surprise, but I do not see them as frauds, and I think that would be unfair.
I agree. I do think it's unfair to call the Knicks frauds, but there's a caveat to this.
Okay.
The expectations about the Knicks beating the Hawks it was more so we just didn't pay attention to anything when it came to it. Like, we missed the details on it. So, and some fans pointed this out. They kind of called out some national talking heads about their assessment that the Knicks were going to beat the Hawks, mainly because of the way Julius Randle played against the Hawks. Julius Randle averaged 37 points a game against them this season. 37, Jimmy. 37 points. So he was eating them up. And if I'm correct, it was also a double-double. So he was beating up on them the entire time. Then we got to the playoffs, and we realized something. Oh, yeah, the Hawks have been hurt most of the season. They also lost a coach, moved to a different coach, and, this is a different team. Mm-hmm. Someone else on Twitter made this comment, which I thought was pretty kind of eye-opening to me and my thought, because I say the same thing. I picked the Knicks to win this series. Mm-hmm. And then when I read this, I was like, this probably encompasses everything about a Tom Thibodeau team. They said that the Knicks got to the playoffs by playing hard. Then when they got to the playoffs, they realized start playing against teams that also play hard. That's the difference maker. So they hustle and grind the entire season to get to the playoffs. And then when they get in the playoffs, that's when everybody else starts hustling and grinding. Mm-hmm. So everybody else is kind of lax and just playing it and making it, going through the motions, where the Knicks, of course, with the Thibodeau team is known for just grinding his players out. Mm-hmm. And then when he gets to the playoffs, everybody's like, okay, time to tighten up. Let's tighten up everything and just make it happen. That to me is what happened to the Knicks. And no, I do think it's unfair to even say that the Knicks are frauds, but Julius Randle just showed us what happens when you put when everybody's healthy on a team and you actually face a full strength team. Mm-hmm. This Hawks team is a matchup nightmare for the Knicks so far. Like you said, they don't have a shot creator, which actually leads me to think that this might be actually a solid destination for Paul George.
Perhaps. I think part of what Julius Randle is realizing now is what it's like to be an all-star, in the sense of how teams are able to scheme you out of a game, or at least they attempt to in the playoffs, when they have nothing but 2 weeks to study you, to figure out all your strengths and weaknesses, and design an offense around you. Because going into this game, the Hawks had to know, if we can slow down Julius Randle, we can win this series in 5. Yeah, because he's their number one player. He's their all-star. If we can slow him down, Derrick Rose and R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley are not going to beat us. And that's exactly what they've done. And they've done a masterful job of that. Nate McMillan, right, took over as the head coach during the season, done a fantastic job. What I'm surprised by is that since this Knicks team is built on strength and toughness and playing hard, I thought and I said this on the show, the Hawks were more of a finesse team. And usually I see strength and power beating finesse, but they're showing that not only are they the more talented team and that they're healthy, but that they are just as tough as the Knicks. That's the part I didn't see coming, because I knew going into this, on paper, they were more talented. I mean, heck, Trae Young is talented than 70% of their roster combined. We know that. But as far as how tough they've been, especially how tough they've been on Julius Randle, that shocked the heck out of me. And there's something else about this Hawks team that I'm going to mention at the end of the show that is also another reason why they did this. So I'm really impressed. The Hawks have probably impressed me more than any other team, including the Nets, in the Eastern Conference, with what I saw in the regular season and what I see right now.
I get you. And what's funny is we talk about toughness and you say that you felt like the Hawks are more finesse. Yeah. And to be absolutely honest, they're a lot more tough than they are finesse. The only reason why we look at them as a finesse team, because their star player is Trae Young. He's averaging 25 a game, and he shoots threes from half court all the time, even though he's only making them at a 34% clip. Mm-hmm. He ain't got no fear, so you have to respect his shot. Yeah. That's basically the only piece of finesse they have. Mm-hmm. Bogdanovich ain't a finesse player, but they also took the ball out of Trae Young's hand and have had Bogdan running the point a little bit and letting Trey move off the ball, kind of like a la Steph Curry set up, which was genius to me. I was like, I didn't think of that. And then when I started watching them, I'm like, okay, that's actually a solid game plan.
Right.
And so that's kind of the biggest change with them. And of course, Lou Williams realized that, lemon pepper wings don't need to be got in the playoffs. Go ahead and go out there and try to, because he's on a team that's going to probably win something and make some moves in the playoffs. And so he can take advantage of that. And Gallinari's Gallinari. He's a dude that's making a whole bunch of money without ever making an All-Star game, and somehow can just, because he's tall.
Yeah.
And he shoots the ball
he's
without
a smart player. And then you have John Collins, who looks good, who's a really good compliment to that team.
Capella's averaging Capella's averaging 14 rebounds a game.
So they're looking at a matchup with the 76ers if they take care of business tonight against Washington. I mean, the 76ers, they might be looking at a 6 or 7 game series if the Hawks team can keep this up. I know the Sixers are a much different animal than what the Knicks are, but the Sixers should not be taking them lightly if, in fact, they do meet them. And they probably believe that they will at this point. I
say that with Philadelphia, they are this season, they're the second best defense by rating this year. They won't have a problem with Atlanta. I'm going to say 6, though, because I think that Atlanta can steal 1 or 2. Just an absurd Trae Young game where he hits a game-winning shot or a 3.
That's one win.
That's going to be at least 1 win, maybe 2. But Philadelphia's going to put easy work against them, unfortunately. But
I don't know.
With that, okay, let's time for more fraud talk. So we said that it's unfair to call the Knicks frauds, and I agree with that. But now we have to ask this question. There's another team that just walked into the first round of the Eastern Conference and just got swept. They're the first ones eliminated out of the playoffs, which is the Miami Heat. They lost 4-0, and not a single game was close. It was literally whipping after whipping after whipping by the Milwaukee Bucks against them. And so it comes as a surprise to a lot of us because Miami beat Milwaukee in the second round last year and made it to the NBA Finals. The Miami Heat are the third team to make it to the NBA Finals, and in the following season get swept in the first round. Jimmy, do you know the other two teams?
All right, give me some guesses here. Let's see. Go to the finals, get swept in the first round the next season.
Yep.
Dallas Mavericks. Is that one of them?
2012. Yes. Who swept them, right?
Was it the Warriors or was it the Grizzlies?
The Thunder.
It was the Thunder?
That was the year the Thunder went to the finals.
I totally forgot about
2012. That. Remember, they went through and started whooping everybody's tail. The Thunder.
Okay.
All right, who's the other team?
Dang, now I got to think of all the past. I mean, it's hard enough just remembering the champions from that season. Okay, let's see. Since the year 2000, you said?
It's been since the year 2000.
So none of the 3 Lakers teams had that happen to them. At least I don't believe so. The Pistons teams, I don't believe that happened to them, nor the Spurs. That did not happen to the Golden State Warriors dynasty. Cleveland Cavaliers.
Nope.
Dang it. Went to the finals.
Cleveland never made it to the playoffs without LeBron. Remember that.
Boston Celtics.
Nope.
All right, let me take one more guess.
Give you one more guess. And you're going to laugh. If you don't guess it, you're going to laugh.
The Oklahoma City Thunder.
Nope.
All right, who was it?
Miami Heat. The year they won the championship. The next year they were swept.
The D-Wade team that won that championship in 06. Okay, got it.
06, 07 playoffs, they were swept in the first round.
All right. Who else? Is that it?
That's it. It's just those 3.
So Dallas
Miami Heat twice and the Dallas Mavericks. Basically, both teams with American Airlines arenas.
Got to stay out of there, man.
Right. It's what it is. So that was the thing about them. So we have to ask this question. Is it fair or unfair to say that the Miami Heat were bubble frauds?
I'm going to go with fair. It is fair to call them frauds. It's not fair to include Jimmy Butler in that because he was really one of the only good things about the Heat this series, as we expected him to be. Well, not the only good thing, but we knew he was going to show up. Amongst the absent were Bam Adebayo. That surprised me a lot. Duncan Robinson didn't seem to be there. He seemed to have already checked out and headed back to the crib by game 2. Tyler Hero, who spent a lot of the regular season injured and seemed to be more interested in living the life of an NBA star as opposed to really grinding, even though a few of his numbers were a little bit better. But he should have taken another step further. So now we see that he is not ever going to be Klay Thompson. He was absent. Andre Iguodala was old. Now, what really hurt them is Victor Oladipo not being there, but he seems to be in the same class. Well, not in the same class as far as talent and productivity necessarily, but he's a lot like Anthony Davis in the sense that ever since that knee injury, right after he was just emerging as an all-star, he's just been injured off and on, off and on, off and on. He wasn't there. So in that sense, yes, they were fraud. There was some protection within the AAU tournament feel of the bubble that was not going to save them now, nor could they sneak up on anybody exactly the way that they did in the bubble. So yes, they were frauds. I do believe in Pat Riley and his ability to, to orchestrate something that we don't necessarily see coming and get this team back to a team that can go beyond this first round of the playoffs. I do want to see what Victor Oladipo looks like with this team. I think he might be a free agent after this season. I hope he doesn't plan on breaking the bank because with his injury history, he honestly doesn't deserve to. But you're worth whatever somebody's willing to pay you. So maybe. But they were frauds, unfortunately.
So I am the opposite. I think it's unfair to call them frauds.
Okay.
They made the NBA Finals
last year.
Yes, they made the NBA Finals last year. Yeah. That's not fraud. That's not being a fraud in the bubble at all. That was a hard situation for everybody. True. Everybody went into the situation the exact same way, and they were able to walk out of there and win it.
Well, no one was saying that was a fraud situation. They deserved everything they got with who they went through. But
this year, season, they're calling them bubble frauds. They're talking about them being frauds from last year because they played against the exact same team that they beat last season. Well, actually, they didn't play the same team because this year they have Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker. Right. So they actually add additional components, and I promise you, Drew Holiday is not Eric Bledsoe. As much as I like Eric Bledsoe, Drew Holiday is better than Eric Bledsoe. And he showed it. He showed it in every way, shape, or form on the court. They're not frauds. They're not frauds for it. They were a 6th seed this year. There's a reason why they were a 6th seed. They couldn't stay healthy, like you said. But at the same time, this heat culture thing, stupidest thing that Pat Riley did was think that he needed to keep Tyler Hero instead of going for James Harden.
Because he thought he was going to have a Klay Thompson who was 20 years old.
If Houston Rockets asked you for Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson for James Harden, you make that trade 100 out of 100 times. Yes. Period. Why? Because James is already proven to get his own bucket. Neither Duncan Robinson nor Tyler Hero has ever shown us a moment where they can get their own bucket. They've shown that they can shoot lights out. They've never shown they can get their own bucket. This is the same thing I say about Klay Thompson. And like you said, he thinks he had a 20-year-old Klay Thompson. He should have realized the one thing that Klay Thompson cannot do very well: get his own shot. Klay is a catch and shoot guy, or he'll get a couple dribbles in, move around, come off a screen, and put the bucket up. You've never really seen Klay create shots. He's not his own creator. No. That's never been his game. His game is grabbing that rock and putting it in the air. You should have saw that about Tyler Hero. And the problem with that is that they have no one else that can create their own shot outside of Jimmy Butler. So, with that being said, that to me is the issue that the Miami Heat.
But doesn't that sound fraudulent to you as far as moving forward, that we only have one guy who can create his own shot? And if something happens to him, we're screwed because Bam really can't. I mean, Bam, it's not that he can't create his own shot. He can't do it maybe to the level of Jimmy Butler or the level of consistency of Jimmy Butler. And you've already talked about.
He's on a wing. That's the thing.
And the sharpshooters, just by nature, aren't shot creators. So, in that sense, taking that with you into the Eastern Conference against a better Milwaukee Bucks team that they had to have known was better, as well as the Philadelphia 76ers team that with the new coach has figured some things out. And, the Brooklyn Nets. In their big three, taking that into a playoffs in that conference against them, doesn't that look fraudulent?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because they came in as a 6th seed and they looked really bad all season. So what happens is after a while, teams start to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses and they start taking advantage of that stuff. Right. And at the same time, you know how many points Giannis averaged in that series? I want you to give me your best guess before we
I'm going to go
on something else.
22.
Very close. He averaged 23.5 points per game in that series.
Right.
That is very low.
But that's what you want.
That is exactly what you want out of Giannis. Because Giannis in the playoffs last year was averaging 26 throughout all of it. You don't want the ball in Giannis' hands like that. And it's no shade to Giannis. He's just not a closer. That's not his game.
Right.
But having Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday with the confidence to do that and then be able to include Giannis when needed, Bucks are dangerous. They are very, very
I underestimated them. You are correct. They are dangerous.
They're dangerous. So let's go on to this real quick, though. Show's going to run a little long, it looks like. Whatever. I don't care. Y'all going to enjoy this because this is great conversation for all of us. You see these fans losing their damn mind, Jimmy?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, so we've had 4 incidents so far in these playoffs. So post-pandemic, teams are letting players back in the arena, and this is the thanks that we give. This is the thanks that we get from these fans being able to get back into the arenas. It's showing all their asses. So first you had Russell Westbrook and the popcorn situation.
Yep.
Fanned up popcorn on him. Trae Young potentially got spat on.
Yep.
Then we had John Morant's dad talking about how fans in Utah, which is not very much surprising, were saying racial and very disrespectful things to not only him, but also his wife.
Not surprising.
At a level of disrespect that's ridiculous, which I'm going to give a shout out to the other Utah Jazz fans. I'm going to stop this now. I'm going to give a special shout out to those other Utah Jazz fans because they did exactly what needs to happen in order for us to move past all of this stuff. They called that stuff out and they went after the person that was doing it. And I'm going to go back to that in just a minute. Mm-hmm. The last one is a fan decides to throw a water bottle at Kyrie Irving as he leaves Boston. And this was the thing. Kyrie Irving said this before he got there. He said, hope is just basketball. It ain't no disrespect, no subtle or indirect racism coming from the fans, that we just focus on the game. You can do your heckling as normal, but don't, take it too far, be habitual line steppers. And I talked about this on my solo last week. And this was my whole premise behind everything I said about all those situations with that and why these fanatics need to be stopped and why I hate them. If you listen to me for a while, you've heard me say this every single freaking time. I hate fanatics. I hate them with a passion. I have a high disdain for them because they're habitual line steppers. They always step over the line.
Right. And
you got to remember this. You know the people that are doing this stuff. You probably work with one of them. You've seen them before. You've heard them say something as you like, that's cringeworthy. You went a little too far with that statement. And I promise you, if you ain't heard nobody say that, you're probably that person. You're probably the one that's known for going too far, drink a little bit too much, act out a little bit too much. There's always that person that does it to where it's just in every way, shape, or form disrespectful to everyone in the crowd.
Right.
That's why I gotta give a shout out to those Utah Jazz fans, as they were the ones that pointed out the person. As soon as they started doing it, they started going after the dude that was doing it. And it's always the same type of guy. They literally look just alike if you really just go look at the profiles. They called them out and pointed them out and told security, hey, man, this man's saying this, and this, and it's disrespectful, and this has no place for us, blah, blah, blah. That's what we need to do, fans. People, listeners to this show, people that love sports, this is what we need to do. If you ever want us to get past this or this not to be an issue anymore, y'all got to call this mess out. Can't be having the players do it. Y'all got to when it happens. Baseball games, they fighting each other. We don't care. But once you start attacking the players, the ones you're there to see and enjoy, I don't care if they're from the opposite team. I have disdain for opposing players as well, just like you guys sometimes. But you're not going to hear me calling names out to them or their mamas. We may make jokes about stuff that they've said, but we ain't going to talk about their parents. We ain't going to talk about their spouses. We ain't going to talk about their kids. It's disrespectful. And that's the thing. The entitlement in this country and this society allowing people to do what they want to past a point is ridiculous. And my rant is done. That's ridiculous.
One of the things that I've heard people say, I heard a guy on sports radio say this yesterday, which is in a sense to minimize what's happening. He said that, in a sense, it's true that the majority of fans don't do this, wouldn't do this. They behave themselves, and it's just a few idiots in these arenas doing that. Now, that part is true, but these one or two idiots, these isolated events over time start to add up to where then it becomes a lot of them, so you can't necessarily say it's just one here, one there. So that means it's part of, I hate to use this phrase, but it's part of an epidemic that we see happening because all that you named was just within the last week. And something else I noticed too, it seems to me, while understanding that the league is 70 to 75% black and every player on the court gets heckled, especially when you go on the road, that these types of attacks tend to disproportionately happen to black players. There could be, there are reasons why perhaps. We don't have time to go into it. It's not the point of this segment, but it's just something that I noticed. Now, in order how to fix this, on top of what you said as far as fans being willing to step up and point out the individual who's doing that, making everybody look bad, two things you can do. First thing, and I've said this before, nobody agrees with me, but I agree with it myself, move the fans back. Somehow, some way, move them back. They are too close to the players. Does that stop projectiles from coming from one spot to the next in the direction of a player? No. But as far as being close enough to put popcorn on Russell Westbrook or spit on Trae Young, to me, that is absolutely too close for these NBA fans. Clearly, they can't handle it. You go to an NFL game where the fans, they're there, you can hear them, but they are back. So these types of attacks against them outside of projectiles don't hardly ever happen because they don't get close enough to be able to do that. Clearly, there are people who, for whatever reason, cannot handle the responsibility of being too close to the fans. I don't care about the tradition of courtside seats. That means nothing to me. If you really care about protecting your players, Adam Silver, and really doing something about this, you would consider moving these fans back somehow. First thing. Second thing, any incident such as what you just named is in NBA cities where there are NBA home courts, 1 year in prison. Does that seem harsh? Maybe. Does that seem unfair? Probably. But if I'm thinking about 1 year of my life being spent in prison with nasty Nate in the cell right next to me, or I can throw this water bottle at Kyrie Irving, I ain't throwing anything.
Did you see what this person is that fan is potentially being charged with?
I believe it's a felony at least, but I don't know the
felony, up to 10 years prison if convicted.
Yes. Should he get 10 years for this? No, but he should get some of that.
You should
make an example of him.
Stop throwing stuff.
Make an example of somebody.
So
Adam Silver, if you're so pro player and you listen to your players and you want to protect them, because this is not an issue. Russell Westbrook has been screaming this for the last 2 or 3 plus years.
Right.
And now it's infecting your playoffs. So you need to do something, make a statement, make people notice, or it's just going to keep happening.
The statement is one bad apple spoils the bunch.
Yeah.
Yes, those are a few bad apples, but guess
what
those bad apples
what
do?
about 300?
Yeah, guess what those bad apples do? It spoils everybody else.
Infect everybody.
It infects everybody.
That's what I'm saying. The epidemic part of it. Oh, they did this. Let me do this. Just like fans running across a football field. It started out with just one guy. Somebody sees that. Then it starts happening and happening and happening and happening. That's what's happening here.
Exactly.
You got to stop it.
Got to stop it.
Yeah. All right, Jay. So let's pivot to the NFL. All this NBA talk has been fun, but we love the NFL to death. So the last week or two, you've had OTAs going on in the NFL. So you've had a lot of players practicing, learning the playbook, rookies, a lot of talk around the NFL. We know the NFL knows how to maintain real estate on the calendar throughout the year. So in a conversation with Bleacher Report, MVP Super Bowl winner Patrick Mahomes was asked about the NFL schedule with this 17th game that has been implemented into the schedule for this season. And his response, one of his responses to that was, and I quote, "The only record I have my eye set on breaking, which would be new this year, is going 20-0. It's not really a record to be broken, I guess you'd say. I think 19-0 is a record right now. So being able to go 20-0 and be the first one to do that, that would be awesome." So he's talking about going through the regular season undefeated on the way to winning the Super Bowl and completing an undefeated season, the first since the 1972 Dolphins, who I believe went 17-0 total.
Yep.
So this would be the most wins, consecutive was blah, blah, blah. So that his eyes are set on going 20-0 with the Kansas City Chiefs team that we've seen over the last 3 seasons, one of the most dominant teams over a 3-season stretch that we've ever seen, with a quarterback who could easily be the greatest quarterback of all time by the end of his career. Do you think that the Kansas City Chiefs actually can go 20-0 this upcoming 2021-2022 season?
Not only no, but hell no. Hell no. And that's no shade at all to the Chiefs. I'm being more of a realist. So I think it's very unfair. Actually, I think it's fair to say that they won't. I think it's unfair to think that they actually can possibly do it. This is the reason why. Their schedule is not favorable for them to be able to go undefeated. I'm looking at least 10 games that are potentially losable. Not that they will lose, but potentially losable, just because those teams have moments that they can do things. And the other problem with Kansas City is health. This is a game of attrition. Can they stay healthy from week 1 to the Super Bowl? Which if they do go undefeated, they would get the bye, so that would lead them to 20 straight wins. Health-wise, I don't see them being able to get past a lot of these teams. So this is who they have that they got to go through. First off, they have to go through the AFC North. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. The problem, I actually had a conversation on the Bird about the AFC North and how it's the It's that division is like the most blue collar grind division of all of them in the NFL. They're the ones that people basically damn near hurt each other, and that's the only way you end up winning. The winner is the one that's healthy out of that, just in the division,
right?
Period. And they go deeper in the playoffs because of that. So they open with the Cleveland Browns, then they travel to Baltimore in back-to-back games. You're losing at least one person in that game, those games. Then they have the Steelers in week 16. So right after Christmas, you have the Steelers coming to your house, in which they're used to the winter because they're in Pittsburgh. So that's a problem. Let's look at a couple of these other games. Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers will be there. Don't worry. He's going to be their starting quarterback. He's not writing checks, nor is the team going to trade him and take a cap hit. It'd be stupid on their end. They have Buffalo coming to town. And unless Josh Allen regresses, their defense is still really good. Following Baltimore, you have the Chargers,
who always play you tough.
They play you tough. And I really like Justin Herbert.
I do too.
He will have a sophomore slump, so this will be a bad season for him, but he's still a big, strong guy.
Right.
And I appreciate them, and their defense is getting a lot better. They actually added some good pieces. Then they travel to Tennessee later on in the season in October. That's going to be a struggle. Dallas comes to town. Dak Prescott stays healthy. Dallas will be a problem. And then after that, they got Cincinnati, Denver, and all of that. So overall, I'm seeing Cleveland, who a lot of people on paper are saying have the best roster on paper right now.
Yes, people say that.
They think they have the best offensive line of all teams in the league, so that's a big thing. So you got Cleveland, Baltimore, 2 times against the Chargers. One of those 2 you potentially lose. Buffalo, Tennessee, Green Bay, Dallas, and then Pittsburgh. So 9 games out of your 17 you could potentially lose. That you can't do it. What you think?
I agree with your assessment of the schedule. They're probably going to lose one of their first 3 games, and then this whole 20-0 dream is going to be laughable when we look back on this. So it's just landmines all over the schedule. And what this shows you is that the NFL does not want them to go to the Super Bowl this year, because if they did, they wouldn't give them because you've left out the Washington football team, which you may win that game, but you're going to pay a price for that.
Oh, yeah, you're going to come out hurt. Yeah, you're going to come out with an injury in that game too.
So they don't want to see them they want to see the Ravens go to the Super Bowl, or hell, the Browns go to the Super Bowl, even the Bills. They do not want the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, because if they did, their schedule wouldn't look like this. So there's that. First thing, though, to Patrick Mahomes is every quarterback has that goal. There's no quarterback who goes into the season saying, it's okay or I plan to lose maybe this game or that game. Every quarterback wants to win every single game that they play and go 19-0 or 20-0, whatever it is. Everybody does. So that's not special. 2, his eyes are in the wrong place, because you can't look at 20-0 if you haven't even gone 1-0 yet against the best roster in the NFL to start the season. So he's looking at the wrong thing to even say this. I know that maybe he thought this might be an interesting sound clip, or it demonstrates his confidence in his team, and that's perfectly fine. But still, it demonstrates something that should be unsettling to the Chiefs, the coaching staff, and to the fans, that he's thinking of 20-0 instead of 1-0, 1-0 turned into 2-0, etc. That's how you're supposed to look at it. And the third thing is he's not accomplished enough to even make this one of his goals, because as great as he's been so far in his, 4 seasons in the NFL, he only has 1 ring. This is something you think about doing when you have 4 rings or 5 or multiple MVPs, or you have, all these passing records and there's hardly nothing else left for you to do. This is where Tom Brady not only is at, this is where Tom Brady has been at 2 or 3 Super Bowls ago, because by then he had already done everything else, already made all of this money. And he actually said this recently, this offseason, that he would trade 2 Super Bowl rings for a perfect season. That's perfectly fine for Tom Brady, because he has done everything else, something that hardly no other quarterback, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 over the next 75 years, is going to be able to do, winning 7 Super Bowls, et cetera, et cetera. So this isn't bad. It's just something that he shouldn't it's something that he shouldn't have said. And I really do hope that his eyes aren't on 20-0.
And I'm not mad at him for saying it personally. I think that I like the ambition, But like you said, this is not the prize you should probably put your eye on. You should probably focus more so on just beating the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens and then the Chargers back to back. Oh, yeah, and then you travel to Philadelphia the game after that. And then Buffalo comes to your house. Then you travel to Washington. Then you travel to Tennessee. And then, of course, from there you got New York that shows up. But then you got Green Bay that shows up. Then from there you travel to Las Vegas, maybe an easier game for you. And then
No, because they're going to party the night before in Las Vegas. So
probably
that's going to be a tough one.
And then you got Dallas coming to town.
Yep.
And then you've got Denver coming to town, and then Las Vegas coming to town after your bye. So, I mean, you got a little bit of gap from your bye week through those, but yes, you've got to focus on not only staying healthy, but also getting past these main teams. So, That's a good point. Okay.
Yep.
Let's wrap it up. Put a bow on it.
So we're going to go in a direction we typically don't go in at all. And that's,
I don't like going this direction, mainly because I don't feel like I am the best orator of this type of conversation. But this is your profession. You're 9 to 5, so I do think this is actually a really good topic to go into.
Well, I was going to say tennis. We don't really ever go in the direction of tennis.
Oh, yeah.
But a tennis...
That's
everything you said was still true. But tennis... leading us into a discussion of other things that really are a part of all sports is what has happened. It's been a huge story. So Naomi Osaka, who I think is a number 2 ranked player in tennis, but really she's number 1. I mean, if you follow anything about tennis, you know that she's number 1. Came out before the French Open, one of the 4 majors of tennis, and essentially said that she would not be speaking to the media post-match because of how in the past it has affected her mental health, has contributed to her doubting herself, and has made it difficult for her to be in the right psychological space, dealing with the anxiety. It's kept her out of the right emotional and psychological space that she wants to be in order to compete against the greatest in the world in her sport. So she said she wasn't going to speak to the media. True to form, after she won her first round match, she spoke to she did an interview on the court, but she did not make her media appearance after that, where they normally sit down in front of all the reporters and answer questions. So she was fined, I believe, $15,000 by the French Open, and they also threatened her, and all 4 majors were in agreement with this. They all talked. They were in agreement that beyond that, if she did it again, she would suffer tougher sanctions, including potentially being disqualified from that particular major if she continued to do this after her matches. So a day after that, Naomi Osaka, today as we record the show, she announced that she is going to withdraw from the French Open and will no longer compete in order to take some time to herself, as well as not wanting to be a distraction to the tournament, as well as wanting to continue discussions on how to approach or how to address just this whole situation with the media post-match. So she's going to be talking about this with other officials who are a part of the Tennis Association, as well as the other majors that we have coming up. So with all that, and with the fact that in most major sports, especially major American sports, players are, regardless of gender, WNBA, whoever it is, they essentially have obligations to speak to the media at certain times, particularly after the game or the match has ended.
Right.
So with all this that's happened, do you think players should be obligated to speak to the media after the game, or do you think it should be optional after that?
So this one's tough for me, and this is why the media helps shape the stories that we that gives us the purpose of consuming some of these sports. Like, I know that we all consume sports because we just enjoy sports in general. We all get into it, and that's a lot of our pastime, and it helps us stop thinking about the real world and things that's going on today. But
Right.
But we do live in a actual reality, and so do these players. And so things in reality do affect them the same way they do affect us. And so that's that one piece that I've mentioned in numerous times in past, that they're human just like we are.
Right.
So they have the same emotions we have. A lot of them have the same anxieties. A lot of them are just really good at their profession, but really bad at public speaking, or even terrified of it. She mentioned it. She hates public speaking. She's terrified. And she feels like she's terrible at it, even though I think she's amazing at it. And it's mainly because that's not the thing she's great at. She's great at playing tennis.
Right.
So she's not going to always be a great interview. She's not going to be a great responder. She does speak well about the things that she's passionate about, but that's not her strength. And so I understand her 100% not wanting to really talk to the media. And I do believe that to an extent, they should make it an optional thing for players. I feel like post game, we definitely want those reactions because we want that raw emotion and stuff. But then we criticize players when we get those raw emotions, like the Richard Sherman situation at the Super Bowl. You can't do that to a guy post game and ask the question of, oh man, was he wrong for saying that? You wanted the raw emotion. He just won the Super Bowl. Give him the raw emotion that you want. And so if you want those raw emotions, like what you get from Russ, like what you get from KD today, because KD's really good at social media, even though he has multiple burners, he does a really good job of speaking about this stuff. Even Kyrie, as much as his theatrics may wear you out, they wear me out. I appreciate them as part of the game because he gives us stories to talk about and things to ask questions about and wondering how the human element plays in things. So not to go too long-winded on this, but I do believe that there should be there should be a better job of understanding what type of players we're dealing with, because you do have players that are really good at speaking in public and have no problem with doing it. But then you have those athletes like Naomi who needs a little bit of space sometimes in order to get themselves right before they can go out and talk.
I think we're going to learn a lot about tennis and their relationship with the media, and just to what degree they feel like, in a sense, they rule their players, for lack of a better phrase. I think they have a lot of options as to what they can do with this particular situation. Now, to answer my own question, I agree. I think it should be optional. I think that they should give players options as far as what type of media environment they want to be a part of. So maybe you have a certain player, you give them the option of, okay, you can go and face the full room of reporters.
Yep.
Or you can maybe be in a room with 5 to 10 or a room with just 1 or 2. Either way, they still fulfill their media obligation. You get the stories that you need in order to create the theatrics and the deepened analysis, which is a part of the entire sports experience.
Right.
And then everybody is happy. The obligation is fulfilled, etc. So I think that there are ways around that. I hope that tennis does not try to bully her into doing something that she does not want to do, and something that, in a sense, as she said, affects her play on the court. Because now look at it. Now, the number one player in your sport has withdrawn from a major tournament, right? And she's one of the main people. That's like, I won't say it's like Tiger Woods necessarily. She's not at that level, but it's almost like the number one player like Tiger Woods has been in, he's the number one draw in whatever tournament he's in, decides not to be in that tournament. That hurts your tournament. So you need to take this serious. Again, I hope that they handle this the correct way, because she's not going to back down from this. That's not her personality. And I've, read some things. I follow her on Twitter and stuff. She's really interesting. She has very strong opinions, and this shows the degree to which how she's willing to back up what she believes in. Now, jokingly, what I thought to myself is that one thing that Naomi could do if she does in the future choose to answer questions post-match with a full room of media, and they ask her a question because what was specific about the French Open is that she got tired of reporters bringing up how she's underperformed on clay, which is what the surface that they play on in the French Open.
Right.
Is she could have 4 people from her team either bring in the actual plaques or replicas of the plaques from the 4 majors that she has won. Just bring them in, stand on the wall, and then anytime she gets a question that causes her to want to doubt herself, look to the left, see those majors that you won before against the best in the world, and then remind yourself that you're still that girl who can do that.
I can see that.
So jokingly, I mean that I don't think she would ever do that, but that's something that she could do in order to remind herself of how great she is. But I think that they should give them options, and I think that this could ignite changes in the media's relationship with the actual players across sports, because I see things media-wise that I don't like in basically every major American sport. I think for the most part, most of these reporters are good, well-intentioned, and they do their job. But I think you do have a few who intentionally will want to ask questions to get that type of negative reaction out of a player, and then they become the star. Now people know my name because I asked that question to that star.
I'm that guy.
Right.
But and this section goes out to the fans as we wrap things up. Fans and fanatics need you to understand something about this. Just because they make a lot of money and just because they're now celebrities because of their performances in whatever arena, field, whatever that they do, this is not something that they ask for. What they ask to do is to play this sport professionally and be great at it. That's the only thing they asked for. They didn't ask for all the media stuff that comes with it. They didn't ask for all the extra. All the extra is for everybody to make money. It's not necessarily for the players to make money. It's for everybody else to make money.
Right.
Keep that in mind. So because of that, it's being respectful to their wishes. And like you said, I really do hope tennis takes her seriously and is respectful to her, because that's the one thing. She pointed out that her problem with a lot of this was with mainly the French Open. That's where the issues lie. That's what bothered her. And she's battling with depression and a lot of depression and social anxiety that she deals with. A lot of that stuff comes from quickly becoming famous. Go become quickly famous, and then everybody's in your business. Everybody's talking about you, and everybody's saying things. It's a lot harder to move away from when you see 15 positive comments about you, and then you got one person that takes digs at you about your look, the way you say things, the way you pronounce things, the way your nose looks, the way your lips are, the way your teeth might be crooked, the way your ear may be slanted or something. Let one person say something negative about you, and it will throw off everything about you.
Right.
Throw off everything when it comes to you. And a lot of people don't understand that that's the stuff that they deal with digs nonstop, irregardless of what they say or do. She's one of those that don't even say that much, except for when she really needs to. But most of the time, she didn't really say anything, and she still gets it. So my point behind all of this is I do hope that, like you said, tennis takes it seriously. I hope that she does what she needs to do, take care of herself as well, because I like watching her at her peak. And the only way a player's going to get to their peak is if they are in their happiness, and we're not doing things to ruin that from them. So let's go from there. So Jimmy. Editing room floor.
Editing room floor. What didn't make it into the show? Okay, so Jay, a bit of a follow up to one of your segments on the last show you did with Julio Jones, and it being imminent that he's going to be traded sometime soon as this week, actually.
Probably tomorrow.
That one of the teams who's very interested in trading for him, and there have been talks between them and the Falcons, are the Seattle Seahawks in the division with my team, unfortunately. So, do you think that Seattle would be a good place for Julio Jones?
Him, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett? No, that's not going to work.
Of course not.
Too many receivers.
Too many. You being serious? No, you're not being serious.
I mean, dead serious.
Clowns?
I don't think.
I see clowns.
I don't. Clowns? No, I don't think it will work. I don't. I don't think it'd be work because I don't think the problem that Russell Wilson had is having more weapons. I think their problem was defense.
That is true, but in looking at this, I couldn't think of a place that wouldn't be a good place for Julio Jones, at least of who's been talked about. I don't think that Tennessee would be a bad place for him. I don't think that the Ravens would be a bad place for him. I don't think the Patriots would be a bad place for him. Obviously, I don't think San Francisco would be a bad place for him. I think his personality, his productivity.
Would be terrible for him. San Fran would be terrible for him.
They would not be terrible
Who's
for him.
Who's his quarterback?
Jimmy Lance. A fusion of the two, basically. That doesn't matter.
Okay.
That doesn't matter.
Okay.
With that catch radius, there is not a bad place for Julio Jones. I don't want him to go to Seattle. I do want him to go to San Francisco. He's got to go to a place that's willing to absorb the majority of his guaranteed money, which knocked out quite a few teams. But we're going to learn more this week.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Seattle, in a sense, it will work.
Okay. What else?
Up next, all right. Now this is it's probably the weirdest editing room floor story that I've ever come up with. All right. So Urban Meyer. So you've heard of AEW, All Elite Wrestling?
God, I saw that video.
You saw this? Okay, so if you haven't seen this, there's a video of Urban Meyer being a part of an AEW wrestling match in the sense that there were two wrestlers going at it, and somehow they made it their way into the coach's office. Chris Jericho, as a matter of fact, you might remember him, was beating the hell out of one of the other wrestlers. I don't know his name. So there was another coach in there with Urban Meyer. Looked like Charlie Strong, honestly. I don't know. That probably wasn't him. But he gave Chris Jericho a couple of footballs, who then threw him at the player, at the other wrestler in there with him. And then Urban Meyer gives him his laptop, and he bashes the laptop over the wrestler. So it's a pretty funny segment. It's so ridiculous. But how do you think the Jacksonville Jaguars players, once they've seen this, how do you think they'll receive this when it comes to Urban Meyer and their coach? Are they like, cool, we love this guy, or that's ridiculous, stop being a clown? What do you think they're going to think?
They're probably thinking that this is, I don't know. It's different. The young guys may appreciate it because a lot of younger guys are wrestling fans, and so I can totally see that. But yeah, this is like the goofiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, they've got a younger roster anyway, so he probably did this in order to just kind of somewhat ingratiate himself with the younger players and say, we like to be relaxed around here, we like to have fun, we want to win, but I'm not Tom Coughlin.
I'm trying to get a better understanding why Charlie Strong was throwing him those footballs.
to throw at the guy, and then when the guy hit him with it, even though he was like 3 feet away, it looked like just the most painful projectile ever thrown at a person. It was so funny.
It was pretty hilarious. Okay,
all right. So lastly, I want to go back to the Knicks Hawks series, and this is something I actually talked to Chris about, our barber, in that Trae Young looks like he has become the villain. You know what they say?
Talk about that Masolo. He's embracing it.
Either retire the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
I love it.
So you feel like it works for Trae Young?
Yes. Yep. He's perfect. Ice Trae out there just being so cold, man. I love it.
How do you go 27 points, 9 assists, and not make the All-Star game in your own building? Is because players don't respect you enough. This separates him from what players thought he was.
No, you don't make that because you have to deal with people that are way better than you ahead of the line. Remember, Trae was an All-Star 2 years ago because he was one of the better point guards in the East.
He still
also,
is.
Kyrie was out. He ain't better than Kyrie. He's not better than James Harden. He's not better than Jason Tatum.
He's got to be better than somebody who made the Eastern Conference roster ahead of him.
You sure?
I believe so. Pull it up. We'll find somebody. But either way, I think that this will help him to separate from that, just walking in the mold of Steph Curry, where you always say the right thing. You're everybody's favorite puppy. The NBA, always placates you and takes care of you. So now if he can be the villain while still putting up those types of numbers because his style of play won't change, I think this is perfect for him. I think he'll get more respect. He'll get more notoriety. It's good for his brand so long as he can wear those shoes comfortably. And it seems like, at least in this series, he can. But I love this too. I think this is great for Trae Young. And, I think it's going to pull out some of the best basketball, even better than what we've seen so far. So I love it.
Okay. That's good to hear. We'll talk about that again.
Okay. Who would have thought Trae Young being the villain?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we appreciate y'all joining us as usual here on Unfair Sports, where, of course, we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. Make sure you share past episodes around. Let your friends know, family know. We will be engaging with you all more and more. So, for Mike, Bob, and Wendy, thank you so much for doing your thing on the back inside. And for Jimmy, he'll be having his solo later this weekend, giving you some of his goods. Hit us up on the Unfair Fan Line, 430-901-1906, and let us know what you think of the show at your strongest opinions. And hit us up on the YouTube page. These videos will be up as well. I put them out in phases so you can watch and see our facial expressions along with the comments. So with that, we'll chop it up with y'all in a few days.
Peace.
Peace.